I'm so sorry about. This really wants to stay on. There we go. Apologies. So here we go again. Welcome, everyone. If you are just joining us, please take a minute and introduce yourself in the chat with your name and your organization. There are a few things to be aware of as we get started. We are recording this session, and we're going to post the video on our website, cambridgenc.org, and we're also going to share a PDF of the slides later this week. Please stay on mute if you are not speaking in order to minimize any background noise and distraction. You can ask questions in two ways, either in the chat, which we'll be monitoring, or live using the raise hand function in Zoom at any point during the conversation. And if you need closed captioning and it doesn't automatically start up for you, you just need to navigate to the bottom of your Zoom screen, click on More, then Caption Settings, and then select Show Captions. So what is our agenda for today? So we're going to be talking a little bit about who is in the room, getting to know all of us together in the Zoom room. We're going to provide an overview of the ARPA Cambridge Nonprofit Recovery Fund. We're going to introduce Conduit Government Relations, who is the technical assistance provider for the grant. And then we're going to get more into the details of the grant program. So talking about the application process, eligibility requirements, documentation, as well as provide a few examples of what this really will look like as you go through the application process. And finally, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. But remember, you can always raise your hand if you have a question that you would like to ask, or put it in the chat. So who we are, right? So the Cambridge Nonprofit Coalition, our mission is to advance equity and justice in Cambridge through strengthening the nonprofit sector, building collective voice, and promoting collaboration. I am Elena Sokolow-Kaufman. I'm the executive director. And our coalition represents over 75 Cambridge nonprofits with a wide range of missions, from early childhood education, affordable housing production, arts and culture, environmental preservation, and a lot more. And we are just so excited to be here, kicking off this session after months of advocacy around getting ARPA dollars dedicated to a recovery fund for Cambridge nonprofits. We're joined on this call by Scott Carter and his team at Conduit Government Relations. They helped us put the program design together. They helped us with the advocacy, and they're going to be providing technical assistance and conducting the application review. And we're also really happy to have a few representatives from the city of Cambridge here with us. We've been meeting with a small team of folks from the finance department and the IT department weekly since the fall. So Jim Monagle and Paul Creedon, thank you for being here today and marking this important milestone with us. All right, so getting to know you. In these meetings, I do find it very helpful to understand a bit about who is in the Zoom room with me, especially since we're Zooming in from many different places. So I am now going to launch a short poll. So please humor me and respond when you see it is launched. After we have most of the responses, I will close the poll and share it. All right, so 4 questions. Who do you represent? What title best describes your role in your organization? What is your organization's experience with federal grants? And how familiar are you with the Cambridge Nonprofit Recovery Fund? Okay, here we go. All right, we have about half of you. Everyone is going to respond, or most. Another 10 seconds here. Okay, so we're going to end the poll. Excuse me. All right, and sharing the results. So as you can see, most are nonprofits located in Cambridge, which is our crowd, so that's a good thing. Mostly executive directors or folks who are in management and development and fundraising, although we do have a few folks from the programming world as well as operations. And you know, a pretty good mix of folks in terms of your experience with federal grants. Mostly are somewhat experienced, although quite a few have never received federal grants before. And I'm glad to see so many people are very familiar with the Nonprofit Recovery Fund. That makes me feel good. Although about a third are not familiar at all. So you all are in the right place. And whatever your role, whatever your organization does, we are very glad to have you here.
Absolutely.
So getting into the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, Cambridge Nonprofit Recovery Fund. So by way of a little high-level reminder, ARPA stands for the American Rescue Plan Act, which is federal law, federal aid to respond to the public health and economic crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our specific fund that we're here to discuss today is a grant program that will be administered by the city of Cambridge with ARPA dollars. The goal is to address the negative economic impacts of the pandemic on the nonprofit sector. There's $6 million that will be dedicated to this fund. And the grants themselves will be up to $150,000 per organization for a wide range of Cambridge organizations covering a wide range of missions. But the amount is really about demonstration and the size of loss. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about what this approach is and how we got here. So I'm going to take you a little bit back in time to provide some context as to how and why we decided to go in this direction. So as with most things that CNC does, it all started with a survey. We started by reaching out to nonprofit leaders and collecting information. In this case, we were really looking at economic impact of the pandemic on Cambridge nonprofits. So asking questions about, you know, how do your revenues compare this point in the year to last year? How do your expenses compare this point in the year to last year? What's going on with your staff capacity? How is it impacting your ability to deliver your programs and services? And what we saw in the data was really clear. There were widespread negative economic impacts of the pandemic, really large decreases in staff capacity. And we saw this across lots of different organizations of different sizes doing different work. And it really sort of helped us tailor this program. And we wanted to respond to the needs as they existed, as you told us. We wanted a program where many different types of organizations could access the funds. And we wanted to build in measures to ensure that the access was equitable. So you'll notice when you look at this, and as we go through and get into the details, you know, the grant program features several things. I think most importantly, a focus on economic loss rather than funds to support a specific project or a particular set of services. This leads to more limited reporting requirements from the federal government because it's not a particular pay for a particular project or services. We also made an explicit decision to have an open period and not make final decisions until after that application period is closed, in order to, address any advantage that might exist for larger, more well-resourced organizations. And we also wanted to build in support for applicants, because we know that, organizations are really strapped, staff capacity is low. And so we wanted to provide as much help as we can to help organizations navigate the opportunity. And so at this point, I'd like to introduce Scott Carter of Conduit Government Relations, who's again going to be the technical assistance provider to walk you all through the details of our grant program.
Good. Thank you, Elena, very, very much. Really appreciate that. And first and foremost, let me thank everybody for your time. Your time is very valuable. You're taking an afternoon that you could be doing many other things. And so we're really grateful for your time. We're grateful for your interest. And moreover, we're just really thankful for all the work that you do and have been doing through the whole, COVID pandemic. We recognize the nonprofit community has been hit very hard. And quite frankly, let me just give a shout out to Elena and the city of Cambridge for their absolute leadership. There's not a lot of these programs. There's a few around the country, but we just want to thank them for stepping up and providing a program like this that helps nonprofits to recover and help with any increased operating cost and everything else. And so we're very proud, Conduit Government Relations, to be a part of this. I am joined by our team, Alex Rodriguez, our CEO, Will Thomas, who is our managing director in DC, and Gina Davis, who is with me in Maine and is our administrative review and compliance officer. And we are just, again, giddy to be here. Our role, as Elena has mentioned, has been, from the beginning, we were lucky to be asked to be a part of this. We work closely with Elena and her team to help, put this application together. Our role is going to be, pretty simple. We're going to be providing technical assistance to you all as you go through the application process. Any questions today that you have in terms of eligibility, timeframes, anything that comes to mind. And I want to be real clear, don't limit yourself to any questions. Don't think you're not eligible. Don't think maybe not, maybe this. What I would ask is that, given that this is recorded, make sure you ask the question or put it in chat so we do have it. We may not, let me be real clear as well, we may not have the answer today, but that's okay. We're in the preview stage. The application process hasn't started yet, and we're here to learn and make this as an efficient and easy process for you all as possible. Having worked in the federal government for 30 years, I know how it can be to take on and try to tackle federal programs. Will, Gina, we all have had that experience. And so, again, we've been doing this for quite a while, and we're excited to be a part of it. Our specific role, as you see on the PowerPoint, we're going to be reviewing the applications, the information that you put in. We will have access to the portals. We will be able to see your information you provide. If you have questions, we'll be able to answer your questions. We will be available to you pretty much nonstop, 24/7, as soon as I know my team might say, really, Scott? Yes, 24/7 available to you via email, as well as phone calls to make sure we're answering your questions. We may not have the answers you like at all times. I'm a very honest person. You'll learn that as we move on. But we're going to give you the best information we can to maintain, our distance as well, so we can, review the applications properly. Mentioned technical assistance today, tomorrow as well. Elena, remind we have another session tomorrow. So please let folks know who aren't able to be here today. Let them know they can join us tomorrow. And these sessions are recorded and will be available. And as said, we'll be available following up with this via an email to answer any questions. And so that's going to be our role. We're going to be the ones who review the application, provide technical assistance, and then provide those recommendations to the city of Cambridge, who has been an incredible partner and they will make those final decisions as the ARPA fiduciary. And so I think that's real quick on us and our role. Again, any questions? All questions are good questions, and thank you again for your time. And I can, let me go ahead and keep rolling, Elena, sorry. The application process. The application period, we still have a couple tweaks on the application, to be honest with you. And again, that's why we're asking for any questions and comments today on that you have. We're looking to open around February timeframe for the application. It'll be open for about 60 days. We're looking at for that timeframe. Decisions, expected very soon afterwards. The city will make the recommendation to the city. The city will make that decision, and they'll go ahead and make that obligation of the grant fund. And so that has to be done within the time frame of the grant period, which is March 3, 2021 through December 31, 2024. So hence the decisions must be done and obligations, distributions done by 2024. The funds must be spent by 2026, meaning they could be obligated to you. However, for whatever purposes they may be for, you may not have a requirement to spend them right away. So they could be for maybe a future hire or some other activity that you have in the future that you see an increased cost or something coming down the pike once it's realized, things of that nature. So there is some time frame to make sure you can expend those funds. However, we will have to obligate those by December 31, 2024. The roles of the organizations working here, again, this has been an incredible team effort between the City of Cambridge, CNC, and us, Conduit. CNC, as they've done here today. Thank you, Elena and team, for an incredible output and participation in this information session. Outreach and advocacy, that's what they do well. And they're going to be handling basically the majority of that with our help on the technical assistance side, moving to us. We're going to be conducting review, as I mentioned, and again, available to you all to answer questions and review documents. And then the City of Cambridge as the final funding decisions, and then they will make the allocation of funds as well as any additional, for example, a city contract for grants. So they'll be the ones handling the final stages and ultimate distribution of the funds. We will be providing the recommendations. I also want to be clear as well in the review, Elena and her organization will not be participating in the review process given her position and relationship with the nonprofits. So we will be doing that alone as Conduit Government Relations and the city. So I want to make sure that that's very clear as well, Elena, if you don't mind me saying that. Because I don't want any bias or anybody, thinking that there's anything there. We're coming in as an independent organization who is very happy and proud to be here, and we'll be making those decisions based on the final rule and regulations based on the ARPA funds. So next slide. And if there's any questions, folks, please feel free to speak out. Go ahead and throw it in the chat, if you will, as well. Eligibility, we're trying to keep it as basic as possible here. There will be one addition here I need to mention. I'll do it after I mention these other three here, but again, 501(c), 501(c)(19), which is focused on veterans organizations or a fiscal sponsor that is as such, have a verifiable location within the City of Cambridge because that's who we're serving, and that you can spend the funds by December 31, 2026 upon entering the grant agreement. In addition, we have verified that organizations will need to have what's called a UEI. It's called a Unique Employee Identifier. You may know it as a DUNS number. The DUNS number is the federal number to receive federal funds. We're going to have that. However, if you do not have it yet, we will provide the it's https://sam.gov. It's a very simple process. We can certainly help you walk through that as well. So what I mean to say by that as well, Do not let that stop you from applying. If you don't have one at this time, you can certainly apply for the UEI and then apply for the grant. And we're going to process you. And once you get your UEI, off we run. So I just want to let you know of that. We've done it as an organization. Any organization that would need or receive federal funds, needs to have one. So we want to go ahead and put that out there as well, and we can help you through that, and we'll provide the link. I see a question from Patty. Patty, let me get that too in a second. Let me finish this last question. And then again, that you've experienced or projected to experience, meaning future operating cost, payroll, hiring, things of that nature, a negative impact as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, demonstrated by a revenue loss, or as mentioned, an expense increase that can be verified by financial documentation. The time period for that, and I'm going to say it, and I'll say it a few times, is March 3, 2021 through December 31, 2024. Let me take a look at the question. Our nonprofit is based in Boston. We serve ourselves in Cambridge. Based in Boston, we will have to double check that. You say you serve Cambridge residents. Patty's question, Elena, is our nonprofit Friendship Works is based in Boston, but we serve isolated older adults in Cambridge, making sure they're eligible. We may have to get back to you on that just to be sure. We will double, triple that. I don't want to give you an absolute right now. I want to make sure. Yes, Dan asked as well. Dan, I'm just going to read your question if you don't mind. The pandemic is still ongoing, and we are still experiencing heightened expenses resulting from the pandemic. Do these ongoing increased expenses qualify? Yes. Hence the date to 2024. And when you read, we will provide source documents to you as well. You'll have an overview of the SLFR final rule. You will see in there as well that these are forward thinking. It is understood that the pandemic is ongoing. And so, yes, those are, again, you need to, show that. Yes, Aaron, yes. Demonstrated loss, question mark. Can this include demonstrating cutbacks, loss in staffing? Yes. What if he didn't experience revenue loss, but only because they worked with a more skeletal staff and operated on a shoestring budget? Yes, I believe so, but we will work with you more specifically to go ahead and walk you, go through your application to identify documentation to make sure we're okay. Okay, and that's going to be one of the things we want to do, and we may do with many of you, is just go ahead and again set some time on the side to answer some specific questions. Sometimes like to do it here, but not always a good time to do it in a forum like this as well, because you might have information that not to share. What does the application do? Thank you so much for that, Mary. We are looking to open it sometime in February here soon, anticipated February, with a 60-day period. And we also potentially, depending on the number of applications we get, how it's going, we'll see how it goes if we need to extend that. But that's the current plan. And so I was a little bit quick in my responses to the chat questions. I hope folks understood that. Again, this is recorded. We will get back to each of you with questions here to put it in writing, so we have a record of the questions as well. Dan, long question there. Let me go ahead and move to the next slide before I jump into that one. Will and team, maybe take a look at that question from Dan in the chat and see if you can go ahead and prepare a response to him as I discuss basic eligibility, if you don't mind. As we mentioned, you need to be 501(c) or 501(c)(19). We would need that letter of determination. List of all the other COVID-19 loans, grants received. What you'll see, everybody, on the application, we're going to have a list of as many as that we can think of that have been available to you via the city or state. What's really critical here, I want to make sure everybody understands here, is the activity you're applying for is the real issue here. So if you receive funds from, say, the CARES Act or CDBG or other relief, and it was specifically for a project implementation, not economic recovery, not increased, operating costs, then yes, you're eligible to apply. But if you've applied, you cannot apply for the same expense. Is the real issue here. So if you receive funding from another round of funding, and it's your current application is not duplicating that, yes, it absolutely would be eligible. And again, we'll go through that as well and ask questions. And in the application, you will see we list many of those grant awards as well. Any documentation, as we mentioned, that's going to be between the time period. My bad on there. I left it at, I tend to think in months, 30 days. It is March 3, not March 2021. My apologies on that. I tend to think in the months. It is March 3. Want to make sure you understand that. March 3, 2021, December 31, 2024, which gets to the question about future expenses. So next question. Will, anything on, real quick, could I ask on, I think with Dan's question in the chat? Dan, Gina, Will, anything on Dan's question? I know it's a big one there. I'm going to move to Mary real quick on what might we expect for a user allocation. Mary, there's no set dollar. There's no set, for example, if you're eligible and you're awarded, it's not a set dollar amount. It is up to $150,000 based on your documentation to justify that request. So there is no set amount where everybody gets an equal amount. It's going to be based on your documentation, your loss, your increased operating cost, et cetera. Yes, Jan, yes. Yes, go back to 2020. Absolutely. List all COVID-19 grants going back to 2020. Yes. And I believe we have all those on the application as well. I believe we list those, just so you know. Thank you. Mark, Triple P funding, not a consideration for this. Triple P, I'm not sure what that means. So
I think, sorry, Scott, I think he's referring to the PPP loans.
Yeah, the payroll protection.
Yeah.
Which were then forgiven by the government to most organizations.
we will check that. I believe I don't want to give you a solid on that. If you receive Triple P funding, I would put it in there and report it. However, Mark, we're gonna let's triple check that, because that's a little different thing there. I want to make sure we're good. If you're okay with that. Gina, thank you. Okay, we'll look into that further. No problem. And again, folks, I hope you understand that some of these we're all going to take a look and kind of dive in because, you know, we still got a little bit of time here for the application, but we're going to get to these right away and get back to you in writing, each of you. Hang on, Art Center. Dan, you got great questions. We're going to have good meetings. I can tell you that right now. With all due respect, I really appreciate that. These are the type of questions and just all the comments in here, folks, we really need to, it helps us, we're going to be able to clarify and make sure we're good and give you good information. So yes, you are eligible. Anuradha, if I said that right, apologies if I did not. Yes, you are eligible if you have a fiscal sponsor. Absolutely. So, Elena, go ahead and go to the next one. Phew. Just some examples, folks, documentation to demonstrate the loss, as it's noted there. You need the documentation that shows that loss. In addition, what I would say as well, you also will have opportunity to provide narrative. If you want to provide some narrative for added emphasis or information as well on your application. So you'll be able to provide that as well as the documentation. One note, I will let you know that there's a little bit of a challenge in the application in sections, you only be able to have one attachment per section. However, at the end of the application, you'll be able to provide as many attachments as you would like. So I just want to let you know that up front, that you'll be able to do that. So just be patient. It's the way the system runs, but it's a very, very good system that it will give you a good flow to be able to provide your information and documentation. But I wanted to make sure you knew the narrative ability as well. Again, the previous loss, profit loss statements, other statement of position, documentations, projected loss. You're looking, you're seeing your rent just went up, $1,500, literally a month. Your electricity's up. You can see these things coming. These are things that are again getting to the operational invoices and bills and agreements. You can have those for losses as well as future staffing costs. Show us, again, wage statements, proof pay stubs, things of that nature, and we can walk you through these as well. And decrease in revenue. I mean, clearly you were locked in for a fundraiser you've had 3 years running. It is canceled. That's a big hit. Fees are down. Members are dropping off. Things of that nature that show that you are, again, lost revenue. Did you continue to operate? Sure you did. But you certainly lost revenues, and again, now you're trying to make yourself correct and be able to move forward and recover those losses. Hence the reason for this fund. So these are some examples, and again, the application will walk you through and ask you for these as well. So if you have challenges with these documentations, I also want to make it clear the rule does allow some flexibility with documentation. In terms of some of these documents here, in terms of it doesn't have to be an absolute, accounting audited statement. It just has to be accurate and correct. And again, any challenges getting some of these documentations, we know it can be a bit challenging looking through the past, just trying to keep your head above water. So let us know what challenges you have on that as well. So we'll be looking. The UEI designation real quick. Oh boy, I don't know if you have to renew it. I'm not sure the renewal date, Jan. We got ours at the beginning of last year, and I'm not sure how long it lasts, to be quite honest with you. We'll find that out and give you an answer. In the interim, go ahead and go on sam.gov, and it might be able to give you a little information there as well. So, Elena, next slide, if you don't mind. And on 406, we got good time here, just making sure we got plenty. This is just, and we'll provide this as well with source documents. We wanted to try to show you an example of what a cash flow statement of cash flow can be used to show budget, the expectations, loss, increases by line item, so you can show it out. This, you may do it differently, but we wanted to just kind of show an example of a document that we would be looking at. Yours may look differently, but we wanted to provide examples, and we'll have other examples as well. Next slide, Elena, is as well here. Showing again actuals, current and future budgets. Want to be clear, if you're looking at future costs in terms of budgets that are looking forward, they do need to be board approved. They must be approved by your board that are, locked in, approved. Yes, this is an official document moving forward as well. So I want to just make sure. And I've said it, and I'm going to keep saying it. We're happy to work with you through those as we move forward. But it's important to show, right? It's important to show that it's important to show the loss, where it's at, why. And have that documented in a nice document with attached information to verify. So we're going to provide this to you. In addition to source documents, we'll have a copy of the final rule. The Nonprofit Council has a real nice little document overview. There's FAQs that we have put together in addition to FAQs by the Department of Treasury. There's an overview of the final rule that gives you good examples and good information as well. I strongly encourage you to look at those, to take a review of those, understand, highlight what questions you have, where you understand, where you don't. And you know, as you prepare to, you know, to fill out, it can be a little bit daunting, no doubt. But you know, take some time and plow through some of those. The FAQs and the overviews are really good documents to look at, because they kind of give you a little summary versus going through the final rule, which can be a little tough. If you're not used to going through those. So anyway, thank you, Aaron. Aaron McCarty, thank you for the answer on the UEI designation. You renew annually. Thank you. Appreciate that. Elena, go ahead. Next slide. Oh, okay. Well, any questions, thoughts, comments, good, negative, positive, indifferent? We're thick-skinned. We need to know exactly what you're thinking. You know, this is the goal here is, you know, we've done a couple pre-sessions, we've done a few of these, and we're going to do another one. And our goal is to really make sure we understand your questions and concerns. And so, as I mentioned, and we're real grateful to have the city on, Jim and Paul. I think it shows a commitment. We're trying to do the best we can to get as much information from you so the application can be solid. You trust our review and our transparency process, and you have the information to make a solid business decision. So thank you so much for your time. Any of my team, I just kind of took over, as I tend to do a little bit, but any other questions? Elena, comments, please.
So I see Adria has her hand up. So please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Excellent.
Hi guys, thanks. Thanks for that review. It's really, really helpful. I have one general question and one specific question. The general one was, when I was originally hearing these proposals with Elena about what this might look like, there was kind of a tiered sliding scale based on like, you would fall into this bracket if you were you had operating expenses of this amount. And I'm just curious, like, is that still the rule of thumb? And if so, like, I understand we'll have to substantiate a lot of information, but is there kind of like a place you plug yourself into as a nonprofit based on your size and your operations? Is that still in the works?
No, Elena, go ahead and correct me, but no, that's why we decided to go ahead and with the city and Elena, all of us decided to go ahead and not do that. We thought that might just pigeonhole some folks, make things a little more confusing. It might cause you to really more documentation preparation. Just and so we thought, you know what? No, up to 150,000, which is the maximum. You know, bottom line is, just being blunt. You know, if you don't have the documentation to support it, it's not gonna, you know, you're not gonna get funded for it, right? I mean, I'm just being blunt. So we decided to go ahead and go to that total. So if you have the justification and documentation to support your request, then you could expect to get funded based on availability of funds. So I have to be bureaucratic. So, but no, yeah, we
and then like a percentage if funds are not available. Is that the plan, or? Well,
one of the things. Yeah, one of the prioritizations we're thinking about, Adria, is for example, if we have an overrun of applications, for example, $7 million worth of applications, one prioritization I think we're still running through, but I think we're kind of set on it a little bit, is those organizations that receive no ARPA funds in the past, the grants that we mentioned before. If you've received no funding at all on ARPA support, or you know, CARES Act, or any type of COVID-19 support, you would get funded first, if you will. But if it's over 7 million, we're still deciding how we would have to reduce. Is it a pro rata? Is it a overall reduction of everybody's amount? But in terms of funding priorities, we're going to give the priority to those who haven't received funding. And so we're still kind of looking at that. So thank you. That's a great question.
Yeah, thank you for those. Can I ask that one quick specific one too?
Yep, please. Absolutely.
So we don't get a lot of federal funding. So I think we were talking about this needing the UEI and registration through sam.gov. We did register for that last year for the Save Our Stages grant, but I just don't know if this is, do we still need to keep that registration active, the SAM registration?
Your SAM registration is much larger than the UEI. It
Okay.
allows you, yeah. If you're a full-blown SAM registrant, you can be a direct recipient of federal funds. So you could actually get a direct, grant from HHS and
But this
others.
is not a grant like that.
No, this is UEI. You will be considered a beneficiary, and it doesn't rise to that level. So
Great.
you're a UEI at that time. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think we need to keep that registration active. We do have a DUNS number. And
Yeah, and your DUNS number, I think, goes, oh, gee whiz, Adria, what, till April or May 2023 or April 2023. So again, what I mentioned before, I want to make sure it's clear. If you don't have one, or if you have a DUNS, go ahead and make sure you go to sam.gov, apply for a UEI. We are going to have a place in the application that you can say, yes, here I applied, and I'll have it. And yeah, we want to make sure that's a little bit of a last minute there. I think we probably could have been a little better there. So apologies if we're catching some folks off guard there.
that's okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Mark has his hand raised. So Mark, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Just two things. One, we've had a recent experience with a small contract with a city where you have to have a UEI number. They can't do it with just a DUNS, and that may need to be clarified on the information. But the other question is for clarification. We've not directly received the ARPA funds, but if we have a small contract with the city where we know they've used ARPA funds to fund us, is that counted or not counted in terms of the ARPA question?
It depends on what it was funded for, Mark.
Okay.
So if you're going to apply to this nonprofit fund for similar or similar or exact reason you received the past funds, then that's probably going to be a no.
Yeah, I mean, it was programmatically specific. I mean, but
no, then probably okay. Probably okay. No, if it was what, maybe I'm just going to throw out. I don't just provide meals to organizations or provide assistance to the community. So that's a project-based funding, correct? Is that what you're talking, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah. No, this is not project-based funding. This is as Elena was mentioned before, and great question, Mark, to clarify. This is fund. Well, let me do real quick. Thank you. Yes, you have to have a UEI. Okay, let me clarify. You need to have one, but if you have a current DUNS, you need to go ahead and apply for a UEI, and you'll be okay. So just to clarify that, and because your UEI will come and we'll get to you. But Mark is asking about project funding, and so no. If you receive project funding, that is not recovery funding or increased operating cost funding, which is what this fund is specifically for. Which it's different, right? I mean, right in the nonprofit world, we're all used to applying for grants to help our folks we help, our constituents, and we're not used to having funds available to take care of ourselves, dare I say. And so I think that's what makes this fund special, and I think that's what again, more credit to Elena and the city for willing to put something out this out there that will allow hopefully many of you to keep on doing the great services that you're doing. So hope that answered your question, Mark.
And I see there are a couple more questions in the chat here.
Dan, real quick, Dan, yes, question 3, does each ask for what amount they would like to apply for, or do you determine the amount based on the budget? No, Dan, you apply for what you feel you've lost. You have increased costs, your staffing based on the eligibility, and provide the documentation. And we will work with you and review that. If we feel it is out of bounds of eligible uses, we will certainly inform you of that as we move forward the application. And again, that's part of our job to work with you on doing that. So I see you got more in your question, but it's chopped up a little bit, so I don't want to read the thing. So hang on, I gotta read that.
I can take some of these smaller.
Yeah, it all
questions
depends,
too.
Dan. I mean, Dan, it all depends. Again, you're talking about, again, past funding and what have you. It all depends. Here's what I will say. If you're asking if there's an accrual system where you have a grant you received before for 50 and another one for 50, are you at 100 now and you can only apply for 50 in this fund? That's no. You can apply to 150 again, as long as you have what you believe is a justification for your request, and we will do the review and provide that recommendation to the city based on the rules.
So there's a bunch more questions, so I'm gonna just like go through the quick ones and the easy ones. So yes, we will, Scott and his team will absolutely be able to answer questions later on. That was the whole idea behind CNC and the city engaging Conduit, so that there was like a team of people who can answer these questions, because we understood that when we went this direction, you know, rather than like project-based funding, if you're talking about like addressing losses, you know, it really does. It's going to be a case by case, organization by organization kinds of conversations, because every entity is different.
Yep.
Even if you're doing the same work, you know, you all have different structures, different expenses, different fundraising models. And so we knew there was going to have to be a lot of, you know, conversation about, okay, what really applies here? What really applies as far as eligibility is concerned. So absolutely, they'll be available for TA later on. I do anticipate once the application opens, thank you, Shannon Watson, for putting this in the chat, that there'll be more questions. Absolutely, which is why the TA will continue. The application hopefully will open in February. That is what we are planning for. Either way, we're going for like a 60-day open period. So if it opened February 15th, it would be open until April 15th. But we don't know. We're kind of like trying to cross the T's and dot the I's right now. And so it's not quite ready for prime time yet.
And also, just again to clarify, well, there'll be an email address. You can send emails, questions as well. So, you know, not only, you know, you can certainly call us, we'll provide our information, but you can also just send an email with information as well. If you want to do that quickly, and we can respond. All of our team, we'll be, as soon as the application process opens, we're going to be monitoring it extensively. And before it opens up, we'll be available. Hence our listening session today, our listening session tomorrow morning, and we'll be available immediately afterwards to answer any questions as we continually move forward. So you can consider us after this call. We'll be available to you. And after tomorrow's call, we'll be available to answer any questions you have and provide you the best guidance that we can. Yeah.
And Mary Catherine has a question. Do you prioritize one category of funding versus another? In other words, do you prioritize social justice nonprofits versus arts and culture organizations?
No, I don't believe we're doing that prioritization. Correct? No.
We're not.
No, we're not.
So we're really looking at this, you know, this was sort of where that decision point was, you know, do we try and get funding for lots of different kinds of, you know, put it into categories, or do we do something really broad like this? And so we're thinking of it, it's really much more like all of the grants for and the support for the small businesses, right? Where it really is, it's about like supporting the entity, supporting the organization. It's not paying for particular sets of services or a particular project. It's supporting the organization. So in some sense, the services don't even matter. Although we are asking people to at least, like, you'll see in the application when it opens, there will be like check boxes like we've used for other CNC surveys, just so we have a sense of who is trying to access this money. Because that is just important information for us to have, so we know where the needs are. Any other questions? You've gotten lots of great questions in the chat.
It's been awesome. It's been really, really good. And again, comments too, folks. Comments, questions, anything that throws, you know, again, really, really appreciate it. It helps. Helps us quite a bit.
So please raise your hand if you have something to share, if you have a question, comment, or a suggestion, especially now, as Scott said, you know, we're, you know, yes, the the lion's share of this is done. But it's not signed, sealed, and delivered yet. So if you have thoughts, now is the time to raise them.
Plus, we have Jim and Paul on, so they'll hear it as well. Who, let me just say, the city, this is one of the first times we worked. This is actually the first time we worked with the city of Cambridge, but I will tell you, Jim, Paul, Michelle, Betty, Dave, these are names you probably may not know, but just all the whole process coming through to get all of it done. They've just been amazing, and really are trying to make sure this is a really easy and painless process. And so again, they're on here today. And so I have to give a shout out to them. It's just been great to work with them. So they're very committed to this. Let me also just throw out as well, I probably shouldn't, but I'm gonna. We also are thinking, some of you may be asking a question here. I'm just gonna kind of ask a question or answer one for you. One payment or two, potentially. For example, there may be, maybe you're looking to hire, future, you're not there yet, but you have, you're trying to move forward. We're still thinking, if we provide one lump payment to you, yet you can't utilize those funds right now, you certainly can't, you can't make money off of the federal government, if you will. So we're also trying to think of some of those things as well. So I just want to throw that out as something we're still kind of touching on, in case some of y'all may be thinking, well, of course, if I have loss and I submit, yes, you'll get the payment. But if there's potential that you may need to disperse funds in the future and you have lost, that might be a little different. So I just want to throw that out. And again, we'll keep you advised of that. So maybe I opened a can of worms, but I just wanted to mention it, Elena, because we've tossed it around a little bit. And it might be on people's minds. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we don't need to belabor this if there are no more questions right now. This takes us really to the end of our information session here. We really, really appreciate your time, your attention, all these really fantastic questions, which will help us continue to, revise, adjust, and tailor this so that it really does meet the needs of the Cambridge nonprofit sector, which is what our goal was. So just one more final note, when this call is ended, you're going to be directed to a short survey. It literally is 4 questions. So please take a minute to respond. Oh, and Caroline is raising her hand. So please, Caroline, unmute yourself.
There's just another question in the chat from Dan.
Yeah, I got it. That's why I'm going, hey, Dan, yeah, Dan, I think we probably used our term differently, right? You mentioned dispersed. We probably should have said obligated by 2024. No, as soon as the applications are, as I mentioned before, as they come in the official time period, we as Conduit, our team, we will be, me, Gina, Will, Alex, will be grabbing those, reviewing them through our process, 2 reviews, going through that. And we'll be getting at the end of the application period. Hopefully, we have many completed, reviewed, recommended, ready to go, and we will forward those to the city. But we also need to do a little due diligence, make sure our totals are correct and all that. And then, yes, any applications that we've processed and are ready to recommend, we will forward those ASAP to the city. And so hopefully in 2023, by summer, payments will start flowing. But again, no guarantees, but that is, you're absolutely correct. That's the indication there. So contacts to share. Yes, we certainly will share those. I believe we'll have an email. I think we already have an email from Paul and Jim, but I think we can get that out after tomorrow's session. Elena, I think we can commit to that. If that's okay, Lois, we will go ahead and get a contact email for you all to send information from, and then we'll go ahead and respond from there, and we can go ahead and provide information. But we'll also provide our phone numbers. I can't not do that. That's just what I do.
Yeah, so, and we're going to be working on like a summary email that's going to go out either Thursday or Friday to everybody not only I think probably to like everybody in our network, not just the people who registered, with like, you know, all of the links, the slides in a PDF, you know, links
Source
to the
documents,
recording. And we'll
that's
also
right.
include, you know, the contact information for Scott and his team so that you all can, you know, start setting up your calls now and ask all your questions. So I think, oh, there's something else in the chat.
No, just thank you. No, that's just
You're
awesome.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And let me just say, please spread the word as well. Please spread the word. If folks think they're not applied, let me say one final thing as well. We've had a little bit, I think I've heard before the questions about, yes, it does need to be COVID related, but let me be clear when you read the final rule and the overview of the final rule, it is understood, it is presumed that if you had losses within March 3, 2021 through December 31, 2024, they are COVID related. So I just want to make that statement, and that is from the rule. You can say it, it's presumed. So any discussion of, you know, is it COVID related? You know what, if it's within that time period, yeah, it probably was. And and it's presumed and understood that. So I just wanted to make that comment, and you'll read that as well, and then encourage everybody to please read up on the rules and information and spread the word. We want as many folks applying as we can, because this is going to be a great program, successful, and you know, down the road there could be more, knock on wood, future years, and so we can be very successful here and do good and keep Cambridge, you know, ready to go. So yeah.
And I guess since the continued conversation is just sort of like giving me more ideas that I want to share. So just so you all know, so as the applications come in, you know, I won't be like reviewing applications and participating in the decision making, but I will be seeing who is applying. And once the application period closes, we are going to do a little bit of an assessment of like who applied, you know, like around cutting the data by like mission orientation and size and all of those things, just so we have a sense of like, okay, how is the sector engaging with this process? And then at the very end, we're going to do what we always do, which is do like a closing survey so that we have a sense of how well did this work, right? Because all of these are, yes, it's an opportunity for funds and resources, which are critical. It is also an opportunity to learn something, right? And so we're going to try and take advantage of this as a learning opportunity to see, how did this work? Was this more successful? Was it not more successful, and why? And so, you know, as this process moves along, you'll be hearing from me. And I just, you know, I hope and ask that you sort of stay connected to us, so that we can, you know, make the most of this experience together. Okay.
Absolutely.
So any last comments, questions? All right, I'm going to stop my share.
Whoa.
I know.
I actually like that view much better. I can see people. Yeah, rather than a PowerPoint. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I can see people. That's great. Yeah.
And thank you very, very much. And please respond to our short survey. And thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time today. Grateful.